Since November 20, the Zaporizhzhia direction has undergone a series of gradual but significant transformation. So not the kind that makes sensational headlines and not the kind that change the frontline map overnight, but the kind that slowly, carefully and methodically reshape the tactical landscape around Robotine, Verbove and Novopokrovka. Okay, so Russia increased its aviation pressure, refined its infantry assault tactics, and focused heavily on retaking tree lines and micro elevations that shape the battlefield geometry. So Ukraine adapted by reinforcing defensive belts, reorganizing artillery, rotating exhausted units, and expanding its drone dominance across several sectors. Today we will examine what exactly happened on the Zaporizhzhia from between November and now, and what Russia gained, what Ukraine prevented, and how tactical balance shifted, and what the next week may be realistically bring. So why this sector still matters? To understand the last month, we must understand the strategic importance of Zaporizhzhia axis. So this direction is not about rapid territorial gains anymore, but it's about positional control, tactical depth, and the battle for the initiative. Robotine remains the forward Ukrainian position that emerged from the 2023 offensive, Novopokrovka and Verbove for Russia's primary defense belt. Every tree line, ridge and trench segment in this area influences artillery coverage, drone survivability, and infantry maneuver routes. So when we talk about small shift, we are really talking about movements that determine whether a position survives, collapse, or became unsustainable. So what's happened in Robotine since November? So Robotine has been the focal point of Russian activity over the last month, and the Russians take some actions, like multiple waves of small assault group, often 8 to 15 personnel, aimed at infiltrating Ukrainian trenches. Systematic attempts to resize tree lines west and northwest of Robotine, used by Ukraine as cover for supply and rotation. Increased reliance on FAB 500 and FAB 1500 glide bombs, targeting Ukrainian dugouts, bunkers, and command posts. Persistent drone reconnaissance aimed at identifying Ukrainian artillery position and standing points. Ukrainian response was consolidate the position along the Robotine Ridge, the most critical elevation in the sector, adjustments in rotation patterns to minimize exposure during Russian drone surveillance windows, and redeployment of anti-armor and FPV drone groups to counter Russian infantry infiltration attempts. And the outcome is that Russia achieved limited tactical gains in tree belts west of Robotine. However, Ukraine maintained control of the ridge, and this is the single fact continues to prevent a deeper Russian advance. So the ridge remains the key. Without it, Robotine becomes so vulnerable. So with it, Ukrainian holds the entire central axis together. South of Robotine, Novopokrovka has seen continuous Russian pressure since November, and the key developments are the Russian infantry, which is pushed into several tree belts closer to the village's northern approaches, heavy use of glide bombs to destroy Ukrainian prepared positions, attempts to probe Ukrainian trenches and logistics nodes linking Robotine to the southern defensive line. Ukrainian forces maintained the majority of their fortified position around Novopokrovka. So artillery was repositioned to avoid Russian detection and reduce risk from glide bombs, which are too much heavy and they are too much powerful. FPV units were active, destroying Russian armored vehicles and infantry groups that attempted to approach open files. So despite repeated attempts, Russia did not breach Ukrainian primary defense. Their gains are localized and mostly confined to vegetation belts, not settlements or major positions. The Verbove axis have been one of the most dynamic since November. Russian objectives here were clear, so they want to prevent Ukrainian forces from stabilizing the corridor between Robotine and Verbove, retake the tree belts lost during the summer offensive, and establish advantageous firing lines on the ridge of the west of Verbove. What we observed that heavy glide bomb strike more concentrated than in the other sector, several infantry advances targeting narrow segments of trench networks. Study drone activity focused on Ukrainian logistics west of Verbove. So what Ukrainian sides do? They reinforce ridge position that provide artillery oversight. They defend the engineering teams, expand trench depth and strangling bunkers. They increased counter-FPV operation to disrupt Russian advances. As a result, Russia managed to occupy certain tree lines north and northwest of Verbove. But Ukraine held the ridge, preserving control over that entire eastern segment of the Zaporizhzhian front. The Kopani direction may appear secondary, but its role is very important. Why Russia intensified attack here? To stretch Ukrainian defense horizontally, to divert attention and reserves away from Robotyne and Verbove, to secure a broader tactical front for future operations. As what happened, Russian infantry advanced into several minor tree belts. Ukraine responded with precise counterattacks. The front here remains stable but active. So this is textbook supporting axis, not intended for a breakthrough, but for shaping the battlefield. From November 20 to today, the defining factor of this sector has been Russian aviation and drone warfare from both sides. Aviation trends like Russia increased the use of glide bombs roughly 2.5 times. FAB 1500 has become a regular tool for breaking fortifications. Air superiority in this area enabled deeper strikes on Ukrainian echelons. The drone warfare is like FPV drones are responsible for a significant portion of both sides' losses. Surveillance drones constantly adjust artillery fire, and electronic warfare pulses has intensified, impacting the drone range. But at the same time, artillery was counter-battery duels increasing in frequency. Ukrainian forces destroy several Russian artillery systems via drone correction. But also Russia continuously recalibrates firing position to avoid the detection. The nature of the Zaporizhzhia front has shifted away from armored maneuver and toward precision strike attrition. Yes guys, and before we continue, I want to highlight you something very essential. So the level of details you are seeing here, their verified geolocations, the month-long movements patterns, the tactical assessment come from sources that do not exist in mainstream media. Most public reports are delayed, incomplete, or heavily simplified. That's why I built a private analytical community where I publish daily battlefield maps, real-time frontline updates, satellite-confirmed geolocation, in-depth strategic briefings, yearly forecast before they reach the new cycle. And if you want to stay ahead of events, understand the war without filters, and access to high-level analytics for less than $2 per day, the link will be in the description. So you support, keep this work independent, precise, and fast. Now let's continue. So Ukraine undertook several essential measures. Reorganization of defense belts. Position on the northern slopes of Robotyne were reinforced and expanded. Rotation of exhausted units. Brigades operating in high intensity zones were replaced to sustain combat capability. Redistribution of artillery. Artillery units moved periodically to avoid Russian glide bomb detection partners. Expansion even of drone operations. Ukrainian FPV teams increased strike efficiency across all axes. Construction of fallback position. So the secondary trench lines were prepared in case of localized Russian breakthroughs. These actions collectively prevent Russia from achieving deeper penetration. What might happen in the next week? First, the continued Russian pressure around Robotyne. Small group infantry tactics will persist. The second, increased FAB strikes on key Ukrainian elevations, especially to the Robotyne ridge. Attempts to widen the battlefield at Kopani to disrupt Ukrainian resource allocation. Stabilization if weather condition will be better, like expect notable hits on Russian artillery and logistics. The next week will be not bring dramatic maps change, but it will determine whether Russia gains tactical momentum or the line stabilize again. And this was full detailed picture of Zaporizhzhia front from November until today. It is a slow grinding battle defined by aviation, drones and positional engagements, not rapid offensive. So the situation remains tense but controlled, and the next 7 days will clarify whether Russia's pressure leads to real tactical gains or whether the front settles into winter stabilization. So thank you for watching, stay informed, and yes, we will see you in the next report.